let me start the questions and ask each of you to address it, if you would. And I think all of you referred to this one point or another. So there's a bad tweet or a bad blog post. Do I respond? And how do I decide whether to respond? Who wants to take that first?
Okay. I actually have a good example of that. There was a gentleman who wrote a blog post. His kid sent a letter to Boeing, and his kid was an aviation geek, and he sent a letter to Boeing with some airplane designs. And Boeing corporate sent back this very terse legal letter returning the design, saying we can't look at this because of their proprietary issues. So this guy writes a blog, and we're all very active, and we all saw it. Now, it happened to coincide, Boeing corporate decided that they were going to jump into social media. They'd been watching it. So they immediately reacted. They went to the guy's blog and apologized for hurting the kids' feelings. They gave the kid some Boeing swag, and then they sent him to a website that they had designed for kids who were interested in aviation and put his designs up there. What that led to was a story in Advertising Age about Boeing being so progressive and forward in their social media. And I was tweeting with them, and I tweeted the story and then the resolution. And they were like, we know that it's important to get this out there. And they admitted that they had handled it wrong. They were just so used to doing it the old way. But they recovered very nicely.
Brett, or Mary?
I was just going to say it's a great opportunity for a company to turn a bad situation around, quite frankly. If someone has a complaint about your product and you respond in a way that shows genuine concern and interest, it's an excellent opportunity to show that this product is, that you guys care, essentially, and to turn bad situations to good, and ultimately to get better publicity out of it. Southwest is really a perfect example also in really taking situations and turning them around. It doesn't always work. I know they had some issues recently with a director who tweeted relentlessly and wrote about, and spoke relentlessly about being treated in a certain way as an overweight passenger. But ultimately, Southwest is a great example of a company that still continues to be as helpful as possible, to respond as well as it can, and ultimately they win in the whole social media fray. They absolutely are a standard bearer in how to act, and so is JetBlue, quite frankly. JetBlue does the same, and Alaska Airlines. Those three are probably the three big ones right now in responding appropriately to customers, and they're great examples.
Yeah,
Brett, you want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. For a lot of regionals, though, it's a very different story because they're not public brands, public-facing brands. So maybe the tools are slightly different, and part of it is just coordinating with your partner carrier to see who's handling this and who's handling that. But something as a regional, Benet mentioned Cape Air has their Facebook page. Look, if someone's coming to the Cape Air Facebook page, they care about Cape Air and they want to know what's going on. And it's very easy to set up a Facebook page, really easy to do. So if you set that up, and even if you feed your press releases onto it and just put some news every so often there, that's great. And it's a place that people can come and interact, and they'll leave, they'll leave comments, and you can interact with them that way. Same thing with Twitter. If someone wants to reach out to you, even if you're not proactively going out there and tweeting all the time, you should absolutely own your name as a Twitter account.
Yes.
Which Benet's got a story on that one. But you should own your name for sure. And then, because when people communicate in Twitter, when they want to talk to someone, they'll put the little @ symbol and then the name in front of it. So, @RunwayGirl and @AvWeekBenet. So if you have your name out there, people will start including you in the conversation. It makes it even easier for you to see and respond to what's going on. But the key is, with something like that, I keep saying the key, but there are a lot of keys apparently. But the important thing here is to make sure that you have a presence that people can find if they want to find you.
And it's free, so there's no reason not to embrace it. And as part of your marketing efforts, this is the least expensive way that you can reach a lot of people, which has tremendous value, really.
And please, again, if you haven't done it, get your name. Even if you do nothing with it, get your Twitter name, get your Facebook page. Brett and I were chatting yesterday. There is a person that is tweeting as BP Global PR. They are not with BP, and they've got 25,000 followers after a week, and they're really funny tweets, but they're not very flattering to BP and its efforts and what's going on in Louisiana. So you don't want somebody to kind of hijack your name and start going out there and tweeting on your behalf.
And that's not just a Twitter thing. That's everywhere. I mean, URLs and Facebook fan page. Make sure you have your name there as well. Things like that.
Brett, you mentioned before you showed some tweets and said, this one you want to respond to, this one forget about it. But yeah, if each of you could address that, how do you decide? Right? There's a million things out there. Some you look at and dismiss. Some you realize you have to engage. If each of you take a crack on how you decide.
Well, I think if somebody reaches out to you specifically and asks you a question, then that's a no-brainer to respond to. The ones where it can get a little tricky, such as that one with PSA, okay, they don't like 50-seaters. If maybe there's something you think you can do in that case, it still can be helpful to respond. But the way that I tend to think that will end up going if you respond is someone's going to say, oh, we're listening, we're sorry you had a bad experience, what happened? And I don't know that it's really going to get anywhere in that case, but you won't really know until you respond, unfortunately. And for some of these, my guess is someone like PSA, smaller airline with less of a brand, than some of the other regionals even. I know for the most part, most regionals aren't branded, but they have even less of a brand. So they're probably not going to see that much in Twitter about them. So if they see something like that, it might be worth responding to. Now, if you're JetBlue, where you have 1 million followers on Twitter, you can't respond to everything. It's just not possible. So,
Mary, how do you decide who to respond to and who you don't?
Well, I actually, Twitter in and of itself can be a little bit confusing. Once you jump on, you think, how does this have any value? What I would recommend is that you get software, whether it's the TweetDeck or the Hootsuite or something that makes sense of Twitter, and it actually brings a lot of clarity to your world, because you're able then to set columns and set certain keywords that you want to search. So for example, every day when I get on Twitter, I've got about 20 columns. I search under the term aviation, I search airline, I search in-flight, I search connectivity, I search all the issues that make sense to me that I want to follow. I search. You can search all the tweets that Bombardier is making and all the tweets that that Boeing and others. And you would be amazed at some of the high-level executives that are on Twitter and Facebook. I mean, you would be absolutely shocked. Even in fact, there's one up here, right here, Nani Joris with the funky mask up there behind. You wouldn't know it to see it, but he's a top VP executive of Airbus cabins, and he is on Twitter quite regularly, and it's amazing the just plethora of information that you can get and interaction that you can get, often with sometimes high-level executives at companies that are embracing Twitter. So this is, I know it's easy. Sometimes people discount it and say, yeah, you tweet, how fun, interesting. But there is a real reason to do it, and there is real benefit to do it, and increasingly, even high-level executives and companies are really getting a strategy together. So it's worth doing.
Benet, how do you decide who you respond to each day and who you just blow off and ignore?
Well, like Mary said, I mean, I just hit 3,000 followers. So I've got a column on my TweetDeck of the people that I look at regularly. Mary's one of them. Brett is one of them. Most of the airlines, all right, my good friend Justin here. And so I look at that column first because I know what's going on. And then I also create columns for events. So I have a column for RAA 10 so I can see what people are saying about the show, who's going to be there, that sort of thing.